The Pac-12 is rebuilding. It is not the Big 12. It is not the ACC. Oregon State, Washington State have evaluated the landscape. They don't want to wait. They've got a war chest of money. They're going to rebuild the Pac-12. That was announced last night. Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports broke it. Everybody, of course, had to confirm it.
My sources have confirmed, by the way.
My sources have also confirmed Ross Dellinger, who's way more sourced than I ever will be. I'm confirming his report.
I just love that the people who got duped by the Pac-12 and had bad reporting for a calendar year then didn't get to break this news. That was quite enjoyable.
That is a bit of the kick in the junk. You carry a lot of water, and then
everything
you don't
will be
get
fine.
the big news when it happens.
30 million, Fox, Apple TV, everything's going to be fine. And then the conference crumbles, and then when you get actual news on the Pac-12, you don't get to break it.
They're going to rebuild the conference. They're adding Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Colorado State. Look at us. We're the state conference now, the Pac State.
You're damn right you are.
And so those are 4. They need 2 more to get to 8, but they have until 2026. They're going to pay, and I believe I read this correctly, they're going to pay roughly $111 million total owed fees to the Mountain West for these exit fees.
Yeah, that's
of the
combined, the exit fees for the school, and then there's a poaching fee on the Pac-12 that was part of the initial arrangement they signed with the Mountain West.
And this was met with a lot of mixed reaction. There's Oregon State fan that still holds hope. This leads to a Pac-12 that we once knew and loved. There's also Oregon State fan that, and we've talked about some of these accounts, or that one guy account that's anonymous that tweets out that they're getting the Big 12 or the ACC.
Yeah, M3 Haver or whatever.
Whoopsie daisy.
Yep.
Not quite right. And so you've got some also anger being met here because it might have just been your reality the entire time, but some fans were holding out optimism, and now they're met with, you're probably just accepting that you're a Group of 5 school now.
Yeah.
And that's your lot in life.
Yeah, I don't blame anybody for having a feeling on either side of the spectrum. I don't know how I would feel. I would probably be more on the angry side if this was my team that I was going through and the realization.
I think it's hard. I don't mean this in a mean way. I think it's hard for you to even put yourself in it, because of how different the situations are, the booster backing, all that
Well, and
stuff.
all the other Pac-12 schools that left are struggling financially, and that's something that my school doesn't have to go through. Like Washington is sending out messages begging their fans for money.
Yeah.
Jed Fish just donated $1 million of his own money. Arizona miscalculated hundreds of millions of dollars.
They're for sale.
I don't know how Cal is functioning. I don't even know how Cal has like a field or how they hire anybody. It doesn't make sense. How do they cut their grass? They have no money down there.
And they beat Auburn.
and they beat Auburn. Yeah, there's the woke agenda for you, Auburn. So my school is very unique to that. And so you're probably right. It is very hard for me to comprehend. I just, what I am at least would be appreciative of is them taking action and trying to take their own future into their own hands. You know, there's a lot of waiting around for things to happen that has gone on for Oregon State and Washington State for the last 2 years. We found out 2 years ago USC and UCLA were leaving the conference. The Pac-12 couldn't pull their head out of their ass in time to figure it all out. That should have been the death knell, and then eventually it crumbles. They can't get their TV deal done. And it's just been a lot of sitting and waiting. And when is somebody going to extend us an invite? And when are we going to get a seat at the table? And when's somebody going to do something for us? And so that would be one of the few silver linings as a Beaver fan or a Cougar fan that I would have today, is at least they looked around and said, you know what? Like, dude, we got to figure this out. We're tired of waiting. Maybe the ACC offer is going to be there in 2 years, but I don't know. And I don't even know what that conference is going to look like. The Big 12 doesn't seem viable. So of the options that I have on the table, I can be, up front and say, let's go figure this out and let's start rebuilding the conference. We can take our destiny into our own hands. And so I think at least there's a silver lining of you're not sitting around waiting for something to happen to you. You're making something happen for you now.
I saw Nimick tweet this, and I did kind of go, I think he's right. You're basically you're absorbing the Mountain West.
To a certain extent, yes,
and
but
so
also
if this
no.
Well, how no?
I mean, you're not taking Hawaii.
No, but you're
not
going to have
taking
2 schools. If I made you gamble $100, would you gamble that they're getting Cal Stanford or some ACC school, or would you gamble that it's going to be more Mountain West?
Probably be 2 more.
Yeah.
Probably 2 more, at least 1 more. UNLV makes sense.
So, but you would gamble on them? on the more Mountain West thing?
Probably more Mountain
West. To fill
Westers.
out their eight spots, right?
Yeah, in the short term, because you got to get there by 2026, and I don't know when. I think Cal and Stanford will eventually be back in this conference. I just don't know when that's going to happen. That's the
right,
hard
because
part.
it could take 2-3 years.
Financially, it doesn't make sense for them to be in the ACC. Clemson and Florida State are going to leave, and that will allow the floodgates to open for everybody else to leave the conference.
Well, I guess I would also ask, because they are taking a very small share of that ACC money, which isn't amazing. What do you mean by financially?
Just the travel costs with the lesser payout. And if what's the break even point of, sure, maybe you're making $7 million more a year in the ACC, but it's no longer viewed as a power conference because they lost their best schools. And how much are you spending making flights to Wake Forest to play a soccer game on a Tuesday?
It is still a power conference, though. They still have that automatic qualifier for now. Yeah.
Now.
And so I think that's why it's enticing for them to stay in it, despite how weird and not logical it is. But his point was, if you do add 2 Mountain West schools, even if you're waiting for Cal Stanford in 3-4 years, I think some people are celebrating it because it says Pac-12 and not Mountain West. And if it said Mountain West, you wouldn't be yaying so much.
No, and I think the other part of that, I understand the argument. I do think that it's not just simply a merger. This is better than a merger. Now it's going to cost you more. But you don't have San Jose State. You don't have Hawaii.
We don't know who they're going to add. They might have those schools.
I think they're just going to try and get to 8. They're already at 6. So you only need 2 more.
Yeah.
So you're not taking all of the riffraff from the Mountain West. There's certain teams in that conference that you just don't really want to be a part of, and so it's not just a simple straight across the board merger. The other hard part about this is we don't know what the final product is going to look like. I don't know what their next move is. Is their next move UTSA? Because that moves my antenna a little bit.
Really?
It's been a really good program.
Mm-hmm.
They get great support down there. Gets you into the state of Texas to go play games and try and recruit in that state.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that makes a lot of sense to me. If that's the addition with, like, UNLV, then it's not just a Mountain West merger, and you took 5 Mountain West schools. 2, you already had 2, and then you added UTSA to the mix. So that's the hard part, trying to come with some concrete take today, is I don't know what the final product of this conference is going to look like.
Yeah, all we have is the initial take, right? It's what is your thoughts seeing that they've, in a roundabout way, said, we are who we are, and it is what it is today, and this is what we're going to do. Teresa Gold, the conference commissioner, said, quote, there's a lot of interest in having high-level conference rooted on the West Coast. There's a lot of interest in our communities and fan bases. A lot of people care deeply about the Pac-12 and Pac-12 brand. There is a lot of nostalgia about the possibility of a rebuild. And I would say that was definitely a feeling I had last night of sorting out, how am I upset about this? Am I optimistic about this? All that stuff. There was a moment of kind of pride. Does sound really stupid, and I'm sure somebody on the text line is going to call, a little brother of you. Pac-12 was our conference, and it got completely railroaded because USC was terrified of Oregon. And they took the coward's way out and went to the Big Ten, and then everybody followed suit because you need USC, unfortunately. Watching them stick with the brand, it may just end up being Group of 5 for the foreseeable future, and that is a bummer in itself. But there was also a little bit of like, hell yeah, let's get weird.
Yeah.
Let's just be as weird as we can at this point. If we're not getting the Big 12, that was the only conference I wanted to get into. I don't care about the ACC, even though they have the Power 4 status. I'd rather just be weird.
Yeah.
And now I don't know what that means financially for Oregon State. I'd imagine it's not great. You're going to get a TV deal, but I don't think it's going to be that much, really. You might be looking like 12, 13, 14 million maybe.
Yeah, optimistic, maybe 17, 18 if you get up there.
I mean, your fingers crossed if you can get to that high.
Yeah.
Just get weird and represent a logo and a brand that we all grew up loving.
Yeah.
And then maybe 5-10 years down the road, all of this goes back and it goes, hey, look, the Pac-12's back. Everybody's back. That's way too optimistic. But my overall point was I did have that moment of like, hell yeah, let's just get really weird. I don't know what any of this means. I don't know how to feel yet. And
I mean, to that point, I'm all for it. I'd call North Dakota State. Do they want to make the jump? That's a hell of a program, man, with a great tradition that knows how to win games.
You're making this almost now. It's actually becoming a difficult conference for Oregon State to routinely win. Whereas, like, I want them to routinely win, so they go to the playoff as a Group of 5.
Well, you can't have it both ways. Like,
I can. I can have it any way I want. I'm a fan. That's the best thing.
It's like a McDonald's commercial now. Isn't that their slogan? Have it any way you want.
Give me my value menu.
I want cheese on my burger. I think my whole focal point now would be it is a really hard kick in the nuts. I think to have that final realization of this is going to be a Group of 5 conference.
That's what it ultimately is. Yes, that's what I'm waking up with today is that. It's like, not that Big 12 was that realistic.
Yeah.
It's more just like, damn, the thing I kind of knew but I didn't want to happen is happening.
Yeah, and it's a year removed from the thing we all kind of felt like was going to happen, and you didn't know if it was going to happen, but we all thought, and then it happened, and the Pac-12 crumbled. My whole mindset now, if I'm Oregon State and Washington State, and if I'm the Pac-12, how do I make this the premier Group of 5 conference? You have something that all of these other small conferences do not have. And this is why Oregon State fan and Washington State fan was right to pay so much attention to the financial windfall that could come from lawsuits. You have a war chest to play with. Hundreds of millions of dollars. And by the way, that war chest is going to continue to get stocked. You
got the bowl games,
the bowl game money, the playoff money, the tournament, all that money is going to get thrown into your coffers.
Yep.
I'm throwing out offers left and right. Like, I don't want this to be a merger with the Mountain West, which is why I don't think they merged with them. They had that option on the table. Just take away the Mountain West name, add Oregon State and Washington State, call it the Pac-12. They had that option, and they chose not to take that option. So who do you go get to make this the premier Group of 5 conference where, no, you're not going to get the same respect as the Big Ten or the SEC, but you're to a point where almost every year your champion gets into the college football playoff. You can get more TV dollars because it's more interesting football matchups. I can get different markets in, UTSA, Tulane, Memphis. I would be all for a North Dakota State. I think that would be awesome if they joined.
Well, that's a passionate fan base,
passionate
too.
Fan base.
That they can play with, that level of football, I think, consistently.
That is that's my next strategy is how do I turn this into, with my financial war chest that the American Athletic Conference doesn't have, that the MAC doesn't have, that, insert all the other ones they don't have. How do I make this the premier brand of that category in the sport?